Welcome to Reddit Aliens. What is a creepy story you haven't told many people? Part 2. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I once dreamed I was hovering around my front yard. Everything was normal and in place, unlike most of my dreams. Then as I approached the entrance on the side of the house, I noticed the door was open. So I looked and I could see my room and me asleep there. I immediately woke up. Next thing I do is to look at the door, visible from my room, and to my surprise, I noticed it was actually open. At like 3 a.m., and everything was pitch black outside. I went slowly to see if I could close it and making sure I didn't hear anyone else inside the house. Once I reached the entrance, I looked outside both ways and saw nothing or heard nothing. I just closed it and went back to sleep. There's a large windmill along the river in Mom's hometown that was once used to pump water. The windmill house had been locked and the mechanism shut down when it was no longer needed for pumping. As I once described, people would gather there at night to hang out. The creepy part was that although the enormous blades hadn't rotated in several years, they'd suddenly start churning in the darkness, even though the air was still. The blades were never seen rotating during the day or during windy conditions. Just randomly at night, when the air was still, it was eerie in the moonlight to see the blades casting long shadows on those gathered near the mill. I once opened a closet and saw a human foot in there, which then disappeared right in front of me. Later I found that the person who was next to me saw the same thing and just didn't say anything, and I didn't either. Number 1. This was over 10 years ago. I saw unexplained lights in the sky on my way home once. I was driving over a bridge and the lights were amber colored and my brain was like, those are street lights. But as I got closer and drove under and past them, I realized they were way up in the sky and so not street lights. They were in a V formation but wiggling around in place sort of as they all glided in unison through the air. The V wasn't moving at its point though. It was drifting sideways. I knew the lights were individual because I could see the sky and clouds behind them. Completely silent. It was nighttime. I was alone on the road. Number 2. Saw some dude hiding in a bush at the library. We made eye contact with each other, but I barely reacted and hustled my ass home. Don't ask me why I reacted like that. I was a stupid scared kid. Number 3. Took a road trip in February many years ago to visit a friend and slept at a rest station in Ohio at night. I was freezing trying to sleep in my car, so I pulled my beanie over my eyes to keep warm. I don't know, I was desperate. I reclined and passed out. I woke up suddenly and pulled my hat up and some guy had froze mid-step walking towards my car. He was a foot away from my side mirror on my side of my car. His hands were in front of his body as if he were trying to walk gingerly. His eyes were wide, and he quickly turned around and bolted into the bathroom when I started to sit up. Needless to say, I didn't sleep for the rest of the drive. I forgot about it after that trip, oddly enough, only remembering it a couple years later. A few years ago, I was walking through the woods off the beaten track a bit, and I smelt this really overpowering sweet smell. Being nosy, I pulled back the undergrowth to have a look and found a dead body. The guy had clearly been there a while and wasn't looking great, all swollen and green and black with various runny bits. The local wildlife had been dining well for a few days. I called the police, who told me to wait with the body until they arrived. Being in the middle of nowhere, it took a while for them to arrive, and it got dark, and I was just sat there in the dark with him for a long time. It turned out he had committed suicide. For a long time afterwards, I had dreams about him, and he would talk to me and not nice things, mainly about how he was angry I had disturbed his resting place and he wanted me to kill myself. Probably just my imagination, but all pretty disturbing at that time. He still turns up in my dreams from time to time, and no doubt will be tonight after typing this. Okay, I'm bad at telling creepy stories, but here it goes. So, it all started when I was 5. I received these 2 porcelain princess dolls at my first and only birthday party. I was stoked because Disney was my jam. Cinderella and Snow White were so beautifully crafted, and I swore to keep them in mint condition. I was told later on that they were thrifted pieces, which made me feel even luckier having them, but that changed over time. Flash forward a couple of years. Weird things went on in my home, weird tapping noises at night, and I felt very anxious randomly. I never associated these things to the dolls because I felt silly. At the age of 10, those dolls were still in mint condition, never out of their packaging, but going near them made me feel sick. I never knew why, but I suddenly felt a sense of urgency to get rid of them. It was very odd, considering that if anything, I would want to sell them off or something. At 12 years old, my family officially purchased our first real home. No more renting or apartments. We were all ecstatic for all the right reasons, but that day, little did I know, I'd experienced something that I'd never forget. The day literally after we got the news that the home was ours, I went to my room to go chill out, and as soon as I walked through the door, Cinderella whipped her head in my direction. My heart sank. I froze for a quarter of a second before I ran away from my room. I sat in our living room all day avoiding going back into my room. By the time nightfall came, my parents told me to go to sleep. I was petrified of that room and begged not to because I was scared. Scared of what? They asked, but I could never explain it. If I would have said, the dolls are haunted, or the frickin' doll moved, I would have been called crazy. I know what I saw that day. The doll moved. When I went back to that room, her head was still facing the doorway. She was angled away from that doorway on the shelf. No one else was in that room. So my Mexican self knew I would not survive this horror movie, and threw them both out in secret, as soon as I could a couple days later. The negative energy was repelled after I threw them away. So back when I was married, our house had a basement with a laundry room, and down the hall from that room my stepson slept in, where he was there. He wasn't this night. Middle of the night, my ex and I are awoken to the very distinct sounds of someone in the basement moving things around and walking. We get up, and he grabs his shotgun. We yell out that if someone is in here, they need to leave. We don't hear anything, so we creep to the main level to look around, and sure enough, everything is locked and dark, but there is light coming from the stairs from the basement. Light that shouldn't be there, as I had turned everything off before bed. My husband starts Scooby-Dooing down the stairs and checks the laundry room, but it's dark, and as he turns to start down the hall to the bedroom, the ironing board propped up on the wall fell inches in front of his face. At this point, he decided he isn't moving without backup and calls me down. We inch into the bedroom, and sure enough, the light is on and all the windows are secure. We turn off the light and pretty much ran back upstairs. Took forever to fall back asleep that night, and in the morning, the light was on again. I don't know what was happening that night to this day. I still have no idea how my ex didn't accidentally shoot the dang ironing board when it fell, or how it fell. He wasn't near it or the wall enough to knock it over himself. And I still laugh, remembering he got mad at me when I came downstairs with only my phone to call the police if need be, and not a baseball bat or something to help protect us. My argument was, if a shotgun didn't slow down, what could a 5'2" me have done? Less full-on creepy, but still unusual. When I was 6 years old, I suffered from a brain tumor. It was successfully operated on, and my neurosurgeon became a family friend. Years later, she revealed that because of my tumor's relative rarity and the technicality of the operation, it had been recorded. My parents had consented at the time, but never gave it much thought afterwards. I asked her to get me a copy, and after she had retired, I finally got hold of the tape. And so at age 19, I got to watch a training video featuring my 6-year-old self being operated on, including very interesting close-up footage of my own brain. That's cool. Just a background for this story. I live in a house that me and many others, including my family members, believe is haunted. I'm the one that has had the most paranormal experiences out of everyone. I know so, most things don't creep me out, but the story I'm about to tell still gives me chills. Okay, so this happened a few months ago. It was around 2:30 a.m., and I was planning on just pulling an all-nighter because I had to be up early the next morning anyway. I got up to use the bathroom, making sure to be quiet so I didn't wake anybody up. After I was done in the bathroom, I checked the top floor of my house to make sure everyone was still asleep. My mom was asleep in her room, and I could hear my older brother snoring in his room. I returned to my room and shut and locked the door behind me as per usual. About 10 seconds later, I hear my mom call my name from her room. I got scared because I knew she was going to be pissed that I was up this late. I yelled out, "What?" without even getting out of bed. There was no answer, so I called out one more time and still nothing. I thought maybe she had just wanted to see if it was me or my brother that used the bathroom. About 15 seconds after she had initially called my name, I heard her scream my name from right outside my door. I'm talking yelling at the top of her lungs, as if I had done something horrible. I hadn't heard her get out of bed and walk over to my door, so I was already freaked out just from the jump scare. I answered, "What?" one more time with no answer. I got out of bed and opened my door to nothing. My mom was dead asleep in her room. She was a very distinct voice, so I couldn't have mistaken it for anything else. That was definitely her voice calling me from right outside my room, but to the best of my knowledge, it wasn't coming from her. That time I was a 13-year-old just walking a block away to buy candy at the dollar store in the middle of the summer vacation. An odd-seeming adult man complimented me on my hand-me-down purple shorts and blue t-shirt. He wanted to touch my long hair and I told him no, and ran out of the store without buying anything. 5 years later, during another summer after I'd already turned 18 years old, and after getting SA'd by my ex, I was walking from the public library to my friend's house, and a white car pulled out of a driveway a block behind me. The same guy yelled out a creepy, "Hi, beautiful girl. I remember you from the dollar store," at me. Whoa. I was sweaty, feeling gross from the summer heat, and I had cut my hair really short, so obviously I didn't look the same anymore, but he still continued to catcall me. I ran down the sidewalk, and he literally turned his car to follow me all the way to my friend's house. My friend's boyfriend was there, thankfully, and got him to go away. Never saw him again. TL, DR, tried to commit suicide and was hearing my deceased mother's voice. I, 13 female at the time, had lost my mother 2 years prior. I was with my brother, 11 male at the time, who had muscular dystrophy and was in a wheelchair. Dad did not have custody, so an aunt and her children moved in when my mother passed everything, changed, and were set in a physically, mentally, and emotionally abusive household and endured all kinds of things worthy of my CPTSD. It was freezing one winter, and after a huge issue where I felt the need to end everything at 13, I climbed onto the roof of my home, looked over the stone walkways with tears. I could still feel the ice on the roof's shingles and the pain of everything we were going through. I had a 2.5-story house with an attic and basement that was tall, so you're looking at more than 32 feet easily. I had been through so much abuse, and her constantly telling me how much better the world would be without me really played on me. The fact that my mother would be happy if I was with her was enough to drive any 11-year-old who just lost them insane. I was constantly told to write a will. I was given bad food and told it was all I deserved. I get tears still thinking of the things she did. After 2 years, I could not handle it. There were other things that I do not need to mention, but it was enough to affect me my entire existence. I then thought about my brother's condition and made a vow to myself that I would not harm my body when he was given such a broken one. I never did drugs or anything that would link me to a serious addiction or death. I decided to go back in when I turned, my foot slipped and started going down the ice roof at a fast speed with nothing to hold on to. It was only 2 seconds maximum, but those fears of deciding to have life, deciding to live and try to protect him for years, I still needed to get him out. He couldn't survive this. I was not going to let that happen either. I was his legs, the only one who carried him in and out of his wheelchair, bathroom breaks, changing, bathing. No one else would have. Those thoughts were all beginning to crumble. I remember struggling to grab something, anything. The real panic came in as feet moved from me and I gained speed closer and closer to the edge, trying to find something that was not ice and snow. To this day, I will never forget it. As clear as day, as crystal perfect as can be. I heard, "Let go." It was my mom. You watch enough videos of them, the voice stays with you. 2 to 3 a.m., falling off the roof, and her voice tells me to let go. I do so. My body moves, and my legs curl under the roof, and I land on the porch. I miss the rail. I don't know physics, it's probably possible. I always thought it was a miracle. I remember hitting the porch and breathing out, "You're needed. You're always needed." That was it. I could have been in such a state. I was saying to myself what was needed for me to continue living. I could have been trying to word things my mother did off of false and real memories. I could have just imagined her voice because I constantly missed her and I tried to keep her alive in my thoughts. I did not talk about this in school. I told one friend who was suicidal about this because I was asked. I don't like to talk about it because I've over-rationalized this 100 times. I do not believe in angels. The idea of life after death frightens me. Mental health issues are always something I worry about. I mean, page 1 of the mental health issue backstory is right here. I got rid of one of my letters and kept the other. The last line of the pages was, "I am not needed." In Las Vegas on family vacation, we were going for the steakhouse at the top, 24th floor of Binion's downtown. They have a glass elevator that faces the street, and my sister-in-law is deathly afraid of elevators, so I agreed to take the hotel elevator inside with her instead. They were undergoing a huge reno at the time, so the hotel was closed. We go in the elevator and hit the button for the restaurant, and we're chatting on the way up to keep her mind off the elevator. So when the door dings open, I step off only to notice I'm in the hallway of the hotel. All the lights are off save for the emergency lights, and they're flickering pure horror movie style. Immediately, the elevator door starts closing, but thankfully, my sister-in-law hasn't stepped off and pushed the door back open. This was like 10 p.m. There were no workers on site, no lights on, absolutely no reason the elevator should have opened. We were so freaked out, we ended up having security escort us down the stairs on the way back out. That last October in my old apartment I shared with my roommate, we kept hearing a man in our apartment that wasn't really there. Then one day my roommate bravely opened her door after hearing commotion in the kitchen, gun in hand, to see a shadow creature perched on our countertop, only to disappear after she turned on the light. I asked her to describe what she saw, but she said she was too frightened to. On the nights I had to be in the apartment alone, I would leave every light on out of fear. So glad I don't live there anymore.